Well, welcome to another episode of the Hector Mike Experience, Common Sense in an Uncommon World. Mike, just last night, Kamala Harris was interviewed by MSNBC reporter Craig Melvin, who asked her some questions that a lot of us have been wondering of these COVID home tests. We talked about it before that they were promised by the Biden administration in December. They still haven't been out. Then he comes back this week and promises another 500 million more. And Kamala Harris just seemed to be stumbling all over herself.
Well, it was interesting because I think maybe the new strategy for 2022 should be avoid MSNBC or anything to do with NBC, because every time she goes on, she has a problem. And it's amazing because from a staffer standpoint, you look and you say, this should be a softball. This should be a softball interview. This person is not going to do the gotcha. Yeah, they're going to do the whole thing about, asking tough questions and stuff like that. But look, we know what they're going to talk about, and here's what your response is. You can't get more friendly if you're a Democrat than MSNBC. Let's face it. So the fact that she stumbles over anything in an interview like that, and it becomes news, that's the other part about this, is that it's not just an interview, it's now taken a life of its own. And it's reinforced a narrative about how she's not prepared. In any interview, it's mind-boggling to think, he asked some very tough questions, some very accurate questions, and she begins her answer with a narrative. And this is one of the things that amazed me. She began her answer with a narrative about all of the accomplishments of the Trump administration. We learned all of the things about hygienics. We learned all the things about distancing and masking and the therapeutics, which, people were making fun of during the election of 2020, but are now using. She talked about the vaccines. We made the vaccines. Honey, you didn't make the vaccines. In a national debate in October of 2020, you said you wouldn't take the vaccine if Donald Trump told you to take the vaccine. So, please don't lecture us about why people don't want to take a vaccine because government told them to. You're the queen of that. You said on TV you didn't want to do that. But those vaccines were developed under the Trump administration. So that's where she starts out, which to me is mind-boggling because, she's saying we, but the we is the Trump administration. And then when she's asked a basic question, and this is the one that really just couldn't believe, when she's asked a basic question about where do you find out, and she says, go Google. Okay, well, first of all, if you watch the ads, the TV ads, it's Google it, not go Google. I think she's getting go Brandon and go Google confused. But you're the United States federal government, for Pete's sake. Why doesn't HHS or the CDC have a simple website? You want to talk about Google? And she talks about how you can go across town to a restaurant, which, by the way, is another crazy analogy. Big difference between going out and have a chicken parm and going out and get a COVID test. But why don't you go to Google and ask them how to do the analytics so the CDC can set up a website that you type in your zip code and it tells you what are the places around you where you can get a COVID test. Go to cdc.gov. That's where you can find out how to get a COVID test.
But she didn't have that information. She seemed like she stumbled. The probably the simplest one, where Melvin asked her, about the home tests that were promised. She didn't have a number. She didn't even know. She said, I don't have the number in front of me, but they're millions.
Right.
He knew the number, 500 million that had been ordered.
Right.
But the thing is that they were ordered in December, and they were promised that they would be out, and they're still not out. Now the Biden administration promised another 500 million, but we still haven't gotten the first 500 million.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and I said, and the thing is that throughout those 500 million, her not knowing the number itself, he was right. In this is the reporter Melvin for asking is, when we saw the Delta, why weren't these ordered beforehand?
Right.
Why didn't we anticipate? Why didn't we could see, like right now, we've talked about another variant going through Europe. We could see some of these variants before they hit the United States, and maybe not the severity of it, but still, is why wasn't the government prepared? Why wasn't the Department of Health, HSS, prepared for this? And her comment was, "We've ordered them. They've been ordered. They've been ordered, and that's
Right.
it."
Yeah, they've been ordered. That's her thing, by the way. In case anybody's interested, she's got the double repeat phrase going, the two scoops with Kamala thing of, when she wants to emphasize the point, she says it twice. It was do Google, they've been ordered, do not come, do not come. That's when she's trying to make her point. But one of the things that's interesting to me, as someone who used to work in federal government, is that you look at the timeline of this. It was November 27th of 2021 when it was first reported about the Omicron strain in South Africa. 3 days later, on December 1st, 2021, it was diagnosed in an individual in California. It took 3 days to go around the world. And then it took another couple of weeks before they said they would order the at-home, they'd have 500 million at-home testings. And one of the things that was reported after that story was that they haven't even done the contracts yet with the suppliers. So it really is amazing. And what's happened is, we're kind of back to 2020, except we shouldn't be. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, in 2020, no one expected this to be what it ended up being. In the beginning, I remember distinctly in the beginning of 2020, it was, no one knew this thing would spread this fast. No one knew this thing would be this deadly. I remember, Trump had a few words about how it was going to go away. Nancy Pelosi, I remember, because I was in D.C. at the time, goes into Chinatown and talks about, how this is discriminatory and you should come out to these restaurants to eat. And a week later, everything's shut down. We didn't know back then. And to your point, we should know better now. And we've got more tools in the toolbox than we did back then. And so it really doesn't make sense. And when she says, well, you can go Google where you can go get home tests, because I went on to, what was it, Medicare website this morning. And, they have a FAQ. And it says, you can go to your local pharmacy to get the test and how you get reimbursed, because you have to pay for it up front. But then you get reimbursed if you got the right health insurance. And then you, which is great. But then you go to cvspharmacy.com or walgreens.com and you search your local drugstores around you, and they've got 7 at-home test kit products, and none of them are in stock.
Yeah. And
you go to Amazon and you do the same thing, and none of them are in stock. So there's a huge disconnect there, and it's mind-boggling. And what it does, and I'll just end it at this, it really reinforces the feeling that we're not ready. The government isn't ready, and the government is not in control of what it's trying to get done.
Well, and Mike, to kind of add to your comments there, the Los Angeles Times this week, just a couple of days ago, and we'll make sure we put up the link, ended up reporting that, people are having a tough time finding these, as you noted, these at-home COVID tests, or any place to go get a COVID test, because as they're wanting to go see loved ones in nursing homes or senior centers, they're having this difficult time. Mm-hmm. And we're going to, to add to it, just today, the California Hospital Association has warned that state hospitals are in the verge of collapse. And, this is kind of what came out of Cal Matters. They're expecting the number of COVID positive patients to triple by the end of the month, and the overall surge in admissions to last until the end of February. And they go on, they said the state health department projects that more than 70,000 Californians will be hospitalized at the end of January, a massive uptick from last year's winter peak of 54,000. And so, this thing is looks as though it's going to get worse. There's a lot of, right now the hospitals are inundated with people, whether it's they've got the cold, they've got the flu, they've got COVID, other conditions. People are having a tough time finding a home test, and yet, you get it from who is supposed to be, the second highest ranking person in this country, the vice president, who's supposed to have the facts as to how many tests they ordered, when they ordered them. She couldn't even tell us when they were going to arrive. She said soon, they'll be coming soon. And this type of incompetency is what's driving the frustration and the anger from the American people, saying, okay, who is actually in charge? And she does herself and she does Joe Biden no favors because she seems incompetent. The Wall Street Journal put out a piece today, and we'll play the clip.
We have 50-50 in the United States Senate. That means we have 51 presidents.
So what's really going on? Why has Mr. Biden's rhetoric become so demagogic? He doesn't have much else. Having failed to shut down the pandemic or to pass his Build Back Better budget, and now presiding over ever-worsening levels of inflation, the president is desperate to get something across the finish line.
And so they put out a piece today, and as you see in this clip, they said, okay, why is Joe Biden talking about voter rights acts? Why does Joe Biden seem like he's so angry? Well, he's angry because he's got nothing else, because his Build Back Better plan is defeated, because you got rise of inflation, you've got this Omicron that has just taken over the nation, you got potential school closures, you got businesses closing, and he's got nothing else. And then to go out and put out the vice president and go do this interview, I mean, it's like the Three Stooges or the Two Stooges in this particular case.
Well, I'm sure we could find a third. Don't worry about it. There's plenty of candidates for that. You're right. I mean, the bottom line is 52-33. That's his unfavorable is 52. His favorable is 33. I don't know a president. I'd have to go back and look at Nixon in the last days of 1974 before he resigned, if his favorable ever had gone that low. But I don't know a president that's had lower numbers than that. And the reason is, again, and I've said this before on our podcast, politically, when you're that low, it's not the opposition party that's driving you that low. It's your own party and independents that are driving you that low. And I've got to think that one of the reasons is because Biden and Harris were elected because they said they were going to bring some stability to dealing with the COVID situation. And when you have her go out and do an interview like that, where she doesn't have facts that the reporter has. I mean, they're administration facts, by the way. I mean, it's not like he dug it up.
They're the ones who ordered them.
Right.
They're the ones who ordered them.
But she doesn't know it. And she says, and here's the other thing, and this equates to, I've been to the border before. When she says, go Google, and then she says, and then she uses the example, you go Google when you want to go to a restaurant that you've heard about and how to get there. I mean, there's a huge difference here between going to find a restaurant to go eat and go finding a drugstore or a pharmacy that you can either get tested at or get a kit at to find out if you've got COVID and if you're going to have some serious issues with your health. I mean, the comparison is just, what she used as an analogy was a terrible analogy. Because, if she said, well, you go Google your urgent healthcare place, or you go Google your hospital, you go Google your doctor. And if I hear go Google anymore, I'm going to go Google. But, to do the comparison of, well, you go Google for a restaurant, so you do the same thing to find out where you get a COVID test. I look at it this way. You're the goddamn United States federal government. You've got, how many trillions of dollars. Set up a damn website at Health and Human Services, CDC, wherever. Set up a website, and so when she's asked that question, she can say, the Biden-Harris administration set up beep.gov, and you go to beep.gov, and you can plug in, and you can find out where to get your test. You can find out how to get a test. I mean, that was like major failure. Go Google. Okay, I'll go Google. I'll go Google 2024.
And that's what I think a lot of Americans are going to do is they'll Google 2024 and how to get rid of this what seems to be an incompetent administration at a time when people are looking for answers and they want some sort of certainty. I mean, and it's after so long, And after, we've discussed this many a times, is, you've got an administration that is seasoned. People who have been there for a long time in government, you would have figured they would have figured this out a long time ago. But I mean, as in politics, nothing ever surprises me anymore. And this in itself has been quite surprising, how incompetent they have become, and especially with an interview that's supposed to go smoothly. I mean, just not even knowing how many COVID tests you've ordered when it's your administration that has been touting this number since December. It's just going unprepared. It's just absurdity. But
one of the things too, and maybe we should try and do this, because one of the things I'm interested in actually is, you mentioned the numbers about California. There's been, I think, 1.1 million diagnoses in the last 3 weeks or something on COVID in California, which is a remarkable number. But the thing that really puzzles me is the numbers that you mentioned from the Hospital Association, and the fact that hospitals are getting filled up. And what we've heard on the backside is that the intensity or the severity of this virus is not what it used to be with Delta or with original COVID. And so I'm kind of curious why there's so much hospitalization associated with the Omicron variant of COVID. Maybe we could try and get someone on to explain that, because again, the government has said it's not as serious as it was. Right. But if you're reaching the point of saturation again, the way it was in 2020, or even worse, then again, I'm kind of curious why that isn't addressed or explained.
It's true. And
we won't ask Kamala. We'll ask. How about we ask a health professional who works at a hospital?
I think we do that. Well, Mike, great getting together with you today.
I got my home kit.
There you go.
So.
How long? Where did you find it?
Oh, please. I found it on
Did you find it off a train somewhere, like in LA? Like just kind of fell off a train?
I was on the goal line from Pasadena downtown. No, actually, I found it online. Not online. I found it. It was an ad on my Facebook page, and I clicked on it, and of course, I couldn't find any. So, I ordered it, but I ordered it from one of these companies that sells other things. Let's say that are not related to COVID, but have supplies of little blue pills. Okay. And so now all of a sudden, every time I go on my Facebook page, talk about, what's his name, Zuckerberg and algorithms. Every time I go on my Facebook page, I have all of these ads on there for Facebook for people selling little blue pills. And my wife is wondering, hey, you've got big plans or what? This was the most expensive thing I've ever bought. I'm going to be paying for it for a while.
All right, Mike. Well, until the next time, Mike.
Take care, everybody. Be safe.
Bye.